Okay, let's get into this question about inherently governmental functions. So first, I need to check out what the question is being asked, the specific issue being researched. Here's my question. Where does it say that you can't use contracts to perform inherently governmental functions? Well, to me, it's very clear that I need to highlight inherently governmental functions. Perform is also an interesting word, and it says can't use contracts. And so I'm going to highlight that as well, maybe a little bit of a different color, just because that's kind of what I'm doing here, right? When you can't use contracts to perform inherently governmental functions. So let's go over here to our search and let's figure out what we're going to search by. So let's start with inherently governmental functions. Okay, so I want to search the FAR, and I also want to search the other regulations since this is the DFARS exercise. So I want to select DFARS and DFARS PGI as well to come up. So I'm going to hit submit, and let's see what happens. So I've got 47 results, and I'm just going to start scrolling through, and I'm seeing a theme here in subpart 7.5 of the FAR and DFARS 207.503. So it looks like this 207.5 or this 7.5, that's going to play a major role. I also saw a couple references, I think, to FAR Part 37, but they're not near as big. So that's kind of interesting to me. So, you know, just for kicks and giggles up here, I'm going to add to my search, and I think I'm going to use contracts in there as well. So I'm going to put everything in quotes, and I'm going to separate it with a comma. So you can see right here that I'm using contracts and inherently governmental functions as my two search terms. And I'm going to redo this. I have 47 results. Let's see what happens now. Okay, I knocked out 7. So I'm just going to scroll through here. But now it's highlighting everything where it says contract or contracts. Okay. And so I'm kind of interested in something that I might be able to use here that's closely related to my question. So I'm just going to scan these real quick. Not really seeing what I want there. Oh, check this out. Right here, contracts shall not be used for the performance of inherently governmental functions. That sounds pretty close to what I'm looking for. So that's, to me, that's my best lead. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up in a new tab so I can save my breadcrumbs. And here it is. Okay. Now it's only giving me the excerpt, and so I want to actually open up the whole thing. So I'm going to open up FAR Part 7, and remember I got to go to 7.503. So down here, 7.503, and you can see that it's under inherently governmental functions. So that makes me feel good. So I'm going to open that up, and down here in 7.503, I think it was A, contracts shall not be used for the performance of inherently governmental functions. Okay, so that sounds really good. So I'm going to put that down as an initial answer that I found. All right, so let me just change this to black. So I've got FAR 7.503A. That's an initial answer that I found. Now notice, too, that we're talking about contracts here. We're not talking about contractors, because I thought I had seen in other places it talking about contractors, but we don't want to talk about contractors. We're talking about contracts, and so that's the reason I'm focusing in on this right here, just so you know. Okay, so there's 7.503. I think that actually answers my question very well. Where does it say that you can't use contracts to perform inherently governmental functions? Well, right here it says contracts shall not be used for the performance of inherently governmental functions. I think that's pretty clear. So then, am I done? Well, we're not done, because we're in the FAR and DFARS exercise, and so I need to check out the DFARS as well as the DFARS PGI. So what I need to do is open up, now remember, the official DFARS repository is at DPC, okay? And so I've got a quick link here, so I'm going to go ahead and open that up. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do though. I wanted to open it up in a new tab. I don't want to lose my breadcrumbs. Okay, so here is the DFARS, the official version of the DFARS, and I want to go to the corresponding section where I found this, and so 7.503, so I need to go to 207.503. So let me scroll down here. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so maybe you can see it. Okay, here it is. So I've got 207.5. Now over here I want to show you that it's showing that yes, I do have some DFARS content here, but I also have some PGI content because these files are present. Notice that down here in 207.70, those files aren't present, but here they are. And so what I want to do is I want to click on the HTML of the DFARS right there, but I also want to see the PGI. So I'm going to open up both of those things. I'm going to put them in order so that we take a look at this stuff in order. So here's 207.503. I think that's where I was, and I can always go backwards to see. Yes, I need to be in 207.503 because that's the corresponding section of the DFARS I need to be in. So here I am, 207.503. Now right here, it's telling me that it starts with paragraph E. Okay, and so this isn't referring to paragraph A, this is referring to paragraph E, and so I'm not really super interested in this because it actually says right here, the written determination required by 7.503E, that's not what we're talking about in the question, and so I don't want to go down some weird rabbit hole where I'm focusing in on that. Even though there's content here, it doesn't relate to my question, right? So that's not interesting to me. I do have a supplemental here, but it says contracts for acquisition functions. Let's see here. This doesn't look like anything that has to do with my question. Okay, and so I feel like the DFARS doesn't really have anything specifically about the question. So far, my original answer right here in the FAR is still good. Like that's still what I want to use. All right, but I'm still not done because I need to check the DFARS PGI. So I've already opened that up. So I'm going to go over here and let's see here. This is referring to 207.503. It's supplemental. Section 804 of the National Defense Authorization Act limits contractor performance of acquisition functions closely associated with inherently governmental functions. So that's good to know that, that this limits contractor performance, but this does not really answer my question, right? And so I've got to go to my final step. Does my answer truly address the specific question that was asked? Well, here it's saying, where does it say that you can't use contracts to perform inherently governmental functions? Even though there is supplemental language here in the DFARS PGI, this isn't answering the question, nor did the information that we found in the DFARS. And so the information in the FAR remains to be the best answer that answers this question. And so I'm going to stick with this, and that's what I'm going to cite as my answer, FAR 7.503 alpha. Now I did want to point out one other thing before I finish here. There's actually another place in the FAR that you may have found this answer, and that place is in FAR part 37. Now down here as we're going down, you'll see 7.5 kind of dominates this question, but we do have a couple references to FAR part 37 here. And if we happen to click on FAR part 37, let's just do that. Let's open it in a new tab. And let's get rid of these just to not confuse things. But let's click on FAR part 37. Now if I type in FAR part 37, inherently governmental, okay, I've got 6 different instances where that comes up. Now look at this first one. Agency shall not award a contract for the performance of an inherently governmental function. This actually answers the question too, doesn't it? It absolutely does. And so I'm going to write that down. FAR 37, this is paragraph C of 37.102. Oops, gotta love it when that happens. Okay, 37.102C. Now, there it is right there. Now, I still need to go through the other steps to see if the DFARS or the DFARS PGI changes that. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that really quick. Oh, but I always want to open it up in a new thing. So this was FAR 37, so I need to go to DFARS 237. Keep going. Keep going. 237 is right here, and it was 0.102. So I'm going to click on these two guys right here. I'm going to open this in a new tab, and I'm going to open this in a new tab. Okay, now my paragraph was Charlie, so I'm going to go here, 237.102. We do have something here in Charlie. In addition to the prohibition, shall not award contracts for functions that are exempt from private sector performance. That doesn't have to do with our question, so I don't need to pay attention to that. So the FAR 37.102 Charlie answer still is good. And if I go to the PGI, 237.102, my goodness, it looks like we had some sort of an error here when it was rendering. I'm going to see if I can't redo that because that is just awful. Maybe I'll look at the PDF version of that because that's just rough to look at. Oh, that's so much better. Okay. And then it looks like we do have a couple in paragraph C here. We have some supplemental things we need to take a look at. All right, right there. So this doesn't look like it's talking about about the question itself. Okay, I'm just skimming this, but it doesn't look like it's talking about the question itself. And so even though there's information here again, it looks like this answer still is correct. Now, when we go back here, right, to FAR Part 37, we're saying, okay, this is a good answer, and we also know that FAR 7.503A is a good answer, right? Which one do I cite? Well, if it were me, I would likely be citing the FAR 7.503 alpha answer because here it's even pointing back to FAR Part 7. Subpart 7.5. That would be what I would be referencing. However, it's clear that both of these answers are correct. Okay, and so if you got FAR 7.503 alpha or FAR 37.102 Charlie, either answer would be correct. And so on a quiz or an exam, you would get credit for providing either answer. All right, that's it for this one.